I will stop my share here. And I will say welcome. Thank you all for joining today's conversation on the rural perspective on slow touring. I just want to flag that we're recording the session and we post them to YouTube afterwards. So just so everyone is aware. I'll go into our housekeeping and community agreement afterwards, but first I want to introduce uh, Veronica Johnny, who is going to get us started in a good way today. Veronica is a multidisciplinary artist, an indigiqueer, Cree Dene Two-Spirit artist, arts educator, producer, and the front woman of the Johnnies, a high energy rock and roll band. And Veronica was a participant in our slow touring pilot project last year, so I am so stoked, as usual, to have her back this time from a really sunny location. She's bringing the sun for us. So, Veronica, I will turn it over to you to get us started.
Thank you so much, Kaylee. And I just want to say thank you to Ontario Presents for involving me again in this beautiful project of slow touring. So first off, I want to say that I wish to acknowledge that I'm currently located on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Mapuche, Picunche, and Rapa Nui. I honor their deep historical and ongoing connection to these lands and waters. I recognize the history of colonialism and remain committed to reflecting on our responsibilities towards more equitable, respectful, and just relationships with Indigenous peoples of this region. So I'm here in Chile in Valparaiso, and I'm just right outside a restaurant, and so I apologize for any background noise that you may hear. And I would like to start in my Cree language. We have a prayer that I would like to read to you. And so before we start this, I'd like everyone to ground with me. And so I would like everybody to take a nice deep breath in with me and out. And again, nice deep breath in. And on your exhale, make that ha sound. Okay, one more time. In. Mamau, Dawi Mau, Father of everything. Kinanas Kamtanan, Asamina, Anuchka Gisigaw. We thank you greatly again this day. Kinanas Kamtanan, Bimatsuin, Imiak. We thank you for giving us life. Kinanas Kamtanan, Sagihituin, Imiak. We thank you for giving us love. Wichihinan, Kamio Wichi Duyak. Help us have good relations. Wichihinan, Kamio Wichi Diak. Saweminan, Kakiao. Bless us all. Watch all of us. Ganaweminan, Kakiao. Esa Gitiak. Watch over all of us. We thank you. We love you. Hey, hey, thank you. Kenenas Kamtanan. We are very thankful. So I ask you to speak some Cree with me where you are. Kenanas Kamtanan. Say it with me. Kenanas Kamtanan. Now we say it faster. Kenanas Kamtanan. Again, Kenanas Kamtanan. One more time. Kenanas Kamtanan. So as a slow tour, a person who was part of the slow tour, it's changed the way I like to think about touring, and and some of the key aspects of what we're about here to talk about today is slow touring in rural areas. And so I'm from a rural area, and I currently live in a rural area. So I was born and raised in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, and it's 8 hours to the next, 3 hours to the next community, 8 to 14 hours to the next city, depending on whether you're going to go north or south. And I live on Manitoulin Island, Minising, in Ontario, and in northern Ontario. And again, it's a rural place. So the thing about slow touring in rural places is we want you to stay for a while. So slow touring works out really well, that you stay when you come to the areas, um, usually for weeks, sometimes months. I can remember in Yellowknife when I was younger, when I was just starting to play music, that they'd bring up bands and they would stay for at least a month, and they would be given a place to stay, and the band would become a part of the community. Which, as you all know, slow touring is about community. So I would say, it's more sustainable, and with decolonizing, it's all about relationships. So you're really relational, building relationships, and it has a big impact on rural communities. Even here in Chile, they say they don't get a lot of people, famous bands coming here. So they just love it when bands come here, and staying a while, get out into community, um, see the impact that you're having in community. Maybe you can do some workshops. Maybe you can do some free performances. Definitely always try to include in there an all ages show if possible. And sometimes in small areas, it might be harder to find a venue or other spaces. And so these are some of the challenges we might face. But it's really important for us to get out into smaller areas, into smaller communities, and do so in ways that where we can try to minimize our footprint, and in ways where we can begin to understand local traditions, local peoples, local customs, and just build our network much stronger. And so for me, when I went to the Northwest Territories and Alberta as part of my slow tour, and as well as different areas in Ontario, that I felt it was really important to also include, the community building and the workshops and the going out, and making offerings. And every time I go, I also go into jails, the women's jail, the men's jail, and share what I can with them. It's such an honor to open the event, and I wish everybody a wonderful day, bringing some sunshine and some warmth here from Chile, straight to you wherever you are. I hope that this image behind me brings you some comfort and some warmth. And I hope you come to Chile one day too. Masi, hi. Ninanas kamtanan.
Thank you so much, Veronica.
You're
Um,
welcome so much.
I do feel like you've brought the sunshine and made me very excited for the springtime and the summer. So thank you for that, Nanaskamon.
Ninanas
I
kamon.
um Before we jump into sort of the meat of our workshop, I'll just quickly do our housekeeping. First, if you haven't yet, please do um oh, can hopefully everyone can see me now. There we go. Please do share where are you coming from? What do you love about where you live? Um, in the chat, we would love to hear that. Um, Instead of just straight up housekeeping or rules, I try to do a community agreement. The idea being that we all agree on how we want this meeting to operate. And if anyone has requests or access needs or anything that they'd like to put in the chat, please feel free to. But what I put forward for our community agreement for today is in the spirit of slow touring, especially, please do whatever your body needs. Please feel free to eat, move around, take breaks. I wrote on here that there's no coordinated break for today, but I think we decided we are going to take a little mini bio break halfway through, so you can expect that. Feel free to have your cameras on or off. It's always nice to see your faces, but there's no pressure. We always have automatic captioning available if you want it. It's under click show captions at the bottom. Sometimes it's under your three dots more button. Like I mentioned earlier, we're recording today's session. We'll make the recording available for everyone on YouTube. Just give us a week to follow up. Please communicate. It's not a massive group today, so we especially welcome you to jump in the chat through emojis, and I will make a lot of space for questions and comments from everyone that's here. So when the time arises for that, I'll let you know. And finally, I always like to put forward this came also from our more internal slow touring meetings that good conversation sometimes means taking risks, and it's okay for us to have disagreements and different points of view or to make mistakes as we're just trying to figure things out, as long as we come with good intentions and respect for everybody that's here. So I'll stop my share. Just wanted to get through the community agreement. Again, if anyone has anything to add or any needs they'd like to put forward, please feel free to drop that in the chat. And thank you for continuing to introduce yourselves in the chat as well. I will introduce myself finally. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Kaylee Wood. I am a program manager here at Ontario Presents, along with my colleague Nor, who's here also as a program manager. My pronouns are she, her, and for a visual description, I am a white woman in her 30s with long brown hair and an orange sweater and a pretty messy mudroom coat room behind me. It's just the reality of work from home and where my desk can go. I created and I managed the Slow Touring project here at Ontario Presents. I have a severe chronic illness, which makes the slow movement particularly important and personal to me. But I also believe that slowing down is actually essential to what almost all of us want to see in our industry, a touring sector that is healthier for everyone, that's kinder and more sustainable. I am speaking to you from Toronto, or Toronto, which is dish with one spoon territory. It's the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and the Anishinaabe, including the current treaty holders, Mississaugas of the Credit. I live in Parkdale. I'm close to Lake Ontario. I think my favorite thing about Parkdale is it has a long history of an activist spirit and community-oriented volunteerism. There's a lot of groups here trying to take care of each other and our neighbors that are struggling. We actually started the first major neighborhood land trust in Toronto that now operates community-owned housing for a lot of people. So that's a little bit about where I am and what I love about it. But let me introduce our speakers for today. And just so everyone knows, you maybe know this if you were at our last workshop, but this year's series of workshops, I'm really trying to just focus on having great conversations with people that I admire and think are cool. And in a way, this is an excuse for me to just get to pick their brains a little bit. So rather than a formal presentation, we're just going to be chatting. And uh, as I said before, I really welcome comments in the chat or raising your hand for questions, all that kind of thing. So, oh, what am I doing here? I've added Rachel on Spotlight. Hi.
Hi.
Rachel is the executive director of Réseau Network SPARC, which is supporting performing arts in rural and remote communities. And she's also a relaxed performance and accessibility consultant, which is a great perspective to have as well for this conversation. And both Rachel and Claire put their beliefs in their bio, so I thought I would read them. Rachel believes strongly in everyone having access to the arts and in a vibrant and strong rural arts community. Super relevant for today. Um, I'll introduce Claire and then I'll have you both share a little bit more about where you are. Claire is another wonderful colleague of mine, a member of Ontario Presents and of SPARC. Claire is the artistic producer and program director of Waterford Old Town Hall in Simcoe County. And she also produces concerts, sounds like in various places, perhaps around the world, but including at the Burning Kiln Winery. And Claire's belief statement in her bio is that she believes joyful, welcoming cultural spaces should exist everywhere and that rural stages can be places of both excellence and belonging. I love that. So let me begin by asking you each to just talk a little bit more about what your work is and where you maybe share where you are and what you love about it. I'll go to you first, Rachel.
Okay, thanks, Kaylee. Hi, everyone. Uh, Rachel Marks. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a middle-aged white woman. Well, I mean, I'm like really at the top end of middle age. I don't know how much longer I can say that for, but today I'm saying middle-aged. I have fuchsia hair. I just recently got bangs, so this is new for me. I hope you all like it. I have very large purple cat's eye glasses on and a black cardigan. I'm coming to you today from Delta, Ontario, Canada's lesser known Delta. I'm about 60 kilometers northeast of Cataraqui, Kingston, on the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people. We are covered by a gunshot purchase in Kingston, and all of the land surrounding went to the settlers, which is funny because I can't hear a gunshot from 60 kilometers away, but apparently they could. So just another highlight of the flaws in our systems. But very happy to be here and love being here. So Delta is the same geographical size as the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, but we only have 12,000 inhabitants. Our population is not 5 million. We're a lot of farmers. There's a lot of dairy quota in the area. And we're also just north of the Thousand Islands in what is technically the Thousand Lakes region. So there's a lake right outside my window that I can see to the left, and across the road is the creek where two motorboats can pass. So kind of a river that leads to the larger lake. And I am very happily situated in the Frontenac Arch biosphere, an area that's been kept super clean and beautiful because of our original peoples. So I am the executive director of Réseau SPARC Network. I get to work on a bunch of amazing and wonderful programs like our upcoming symposium in May in Sudbury. And I get to work with amazing a working board of directors of folks that are in the industry, whether they make their living in the arts or they live to make their arts. These are our SPARC members, and we've got some SPARC members here today. So hi, everyone. Um, yeah, I get a chance to work with Claire, and really, that just makes my life very happy. We really like each other, if you can't tell.
I just booped your nose. Um, I'm Claire. I live in Waterford, Ontario, which is about, I know that in Canada we measure things by time, about an hour and a half southwest of Toronto. And uh, it's close to Lake Erie and equidistant from Toronto, Niagara, and London, if that gives you some sense of where we're located. I'm located right now. Um, And we are also on the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee. And we are also when the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. I've just been reading a little bit more about that lately, and um, the principles surrounding that are based on peace and sharing. So um, I think often of how blessed blessed I am to exist on this land, and also just struck by just the privilege that I have and we have here in this neck of the woods. And we are also on like Norfolk County, the county that Waterford is in, has a biosphere. I think it's Port Rowan, protected a UNESCO protected biosphere. And what do I love about this place? I really love it here. I think mm, I think what keeps me in Waterford in this small town, it's like 3,000, population 3,000, um, is just the feeling of genuine community, the feeling of there's just, and I'll probably talk about this a little bit later. During the pandemic, we had a music stroll and we animated front lawns all along Main Street, beautiful Main Street in Waterford. And I feel like if there was a way to measure joy, if we could see it, like if we actually see it with our heart, it sparks everywhere. Rachel, spark. And there's just something here that I just can't, I always return. And it's the people, it's, I think, the openness to the work that we're doing here, and also the connections that are made when you live in a small town. I'll stop.
Super quick, Claire, can you tell us about your venue?
I'm in the green room right now. It is. It was built in 1902. It's a town hall, and Waterford, the town. Another really cool thing about Waterford is there were so many junctions, like train tracks going every which way, which was unusual for a town this small. So you could hop on a train like at the turn of the last century and like go to Niagara Falls or go to New York. So there's like a bizarre sort of sophistication here and in the homes. Especially along Main Street. This building is now a multidisciplinary art center with a gallery in the lobby and a theater that seats about 200 people. And it's warm and wonderful. And just, I think, I know David is here. David Barnard is here. I know that you've been in this space. I don't know how many other people have been in this space, but there's just something that is just envelops folks. And it's made for music. It's made for performers. I love it far more than the the winery. It's like outdoors. It's wonderful. It's very different. It's really special.
Yeah, yeah. David is adding that it's a magical room, so
Mhm.
we can all believe that for sure. I want to go ask you both really my most essential question right away for today, which is how can being in a rural location actually be an advantage in slow touring or in the touring sector in general, rather than what we sometimes think of it as, which could be a barrier or a hurdle or a lack of resources? Yeah, how do you find being rurally located as an advantage?
You want to take this, Rach?
Sure, I'll start, but I know you've got good references. So honestly, I think that rural hospitality and slow touring go together like a beautiful fitted piece. We might not have resources. I'm just gonna dip into disability for a second and say ASL. So I don't have ASL interpreters in Delta. You know, we're a village of 350 in a township of 1200 or 12,000. The closest ASL interpreters may come from Kingston, which is an hour away, but we're able to make it happen. One of the community members might drive to Kingston and pick up that ASL interpreter and drive back to our hall to be able to have them work. You know, we can rely on somebody, oh, maybe they're coming from Ottawa and they can't go home overnight, so somebody could billet them or we could find a hotel for them. There's always members of our community that are stepping up and offering help and assistance. It's about positionality and relationship building at its heart. And I think that's the biggest strength for rural and slow touring. It's about the people. Maybe the art form that's coming into town is new and different, but that doesn't matter because they've already connected to what we're presenting and what we're doing and why. I'm going to stop there and pass to Claire.
Oh, well, just to like the first thing you said is hospitality. There's just something about small towns, and because everyone does have a connection, like everyone is connected, and folks get really excited about something kind of like something coming in, like a play or a concert, and because we're not in urban centers, you have so many choices. So there's concerts happening all the time, everywhere, all at once, and plays, and but when something comes to a small town, it's really special, and I think that is an asset. I also think I also think that a benefit to coming like from the artist perspective, coming to this a small community, small town, is that intimacy. Like they enter into a space where um, there's ownership and there's volunteers. And like Rachel, like was it you that said the ladies at they make the snacks that the
Yeah,
theater serves,
yeah.
and you can just like, I remember like watching cooking shows like years and years ago, and I grabbed onto this thought that was one of the chefs was um, talking and saying, you can taste the love in the food. Like when you are, whatever it is you're doing in this space, I feel like people walk in and they can feel, like they can taste the love. And because there's so much care, it's not just a generic hall. It's run by volunteers, and the community is so proud of it, and also curating. Sorry, this will be the last thing I say. Uh, Also curating, choosing the artists that are going to perform here, and curating the theater pieces that we present is an act of like thoughtful, earnest. It's like a responsibility, and that also, it's just saturated with all of that goodness. And I think that's not like unique to my community. I think that's a small town thing.
I agree, Claire. And I think too, if I might, Kaylee, like another benefit for the artists, I think, is a better, like a nice work-life balance. Like, yes, in my community, if we've got festivals, small halls happening, or our pride celebrations, the locals make the meals, and this is farm to table. This is coming right out of people's gardens, right off of people's farms. And so the freshness of the food, the ability to take a walk in the woods if you need a mind or body break. Yes, we're close to XYZ, and you can go do, I'm close to Gananoque. You can go see the Thousand Islands. Like it's stunningly beautiful, and that could be part of the day. And so while there is a lot to do in urban centers, and it's equally as exciting, and this is definitely not urban versus rural, we both have our beautiful, wonderful, positive things. But in a rural area, maybe it can be treated as a mini holiday. For instance, people who took part in the slow touring pilot and biked with their family, and they took their children and were able to spend time as a family. And I think in rural communities, and also babysitters, if you do tour with your family, community members are stepping up to help out. And yeah, I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna stop.
Rambling. I would, yeah. Kaylee, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. I'll
Okay.
jump in. But I think you've both sort of hit the nail on the head that relationships are so at the core of slow touring. I mean, Veronica said that right from the start too. And that rural communities are often really great at relationships. Um, I live in Toronto, obviously just the most urban you can get, and I'm sometimes surrounded by this very urban point of view that rural audiences are backwards, or maybe they're just homogeneously white or conservative or not open to diverse arts experiences. Would you guys say there's any grounding of truth in that, or what are you really seeing on the ground?
I say yes and no. So, like I founded our local Pride celebrations, and I run it still. And you'd think in a village of 350 people in a greater township of 12,000, we're very close to where a lot of the truckers for the convoy came from. I live in Canada's longest running conservative riding. Like that's how serious it is here. Um,
Are you sure?
right? But hopefully not anymore. But
I
anyway,
don't know.
but like we presented the first drag king in the village, the first drag queen in the village, the first openly queer comedians, and last year burlesque for the first time. And we have had sold out shows. And in fact, the comedian last year made a joke about not usually feeling so safe in a room full of gray-haired white people. But the fact that there were young queer people there with their entire family coming to support them, which you might not see in an urban space because they're going with their pals, which is great. We want them to have more, we want folks to have more pals anyway. But so I think, not all small community, it's not one size fits all. You are going to find those conservative pockets, but I think with the influx of folks leaving urban areas and newcomers moving directly to rural communities, we're really seeing a shift. And I think that that's underrated. I mean, at SPARC, we're really trying to like fight this sort of preconceived notion that all rural dwellers are retired white English teachers. And listen, retired white English teachers are my godparents. I got nothing against them. But we're not just that. There's so many more of us living in rural areas, and there's so many more folks moving to rural areas because maybe they come from a rural area in another country and they want to establish themselves here, or maybe they just like the nature. And so I think we need to recognize that as the country changes, so do our rural communities.
That's true. I think in Waterford, like in my community in particular, um, hmm, I think there's been like a baby steps, like a shift in terms of the palette sort of changing and people becoming more open to involving themselves in the programming here and like tiptoeing into the theater, and like it's been gradual, and I think it's because of the work that is being done here. But why um why I think we've been so successful and come to this place where like we had schools come and plant rainbow flags all over our lawn. You know, we have a permanent pride flag on our sign because it was stolen. It kept getting stolen. So we're like, you know what? Guess what? We're going to make it permanent, and that's part of our statement. But I started with children's programming 20 years ago when I was 8. um, we began well, I began with a small group of women that this building was rejuvenated and it was brought back to its original splendor, and then suddenly they were like, well, what are we going to do? We're going to have weddings, we're going to, when there was an awkward period where, with the folks who were part of the restoration campaign weren't really sure, now that it was done, all that work was done, um, uh, what's next. So I helped begin a children's theater company, and then developed a program called Dress Up and Drama for younger kids, and really like not just like, oh, we're going to do theater, but it was intentional. Like our philosophical underpinnings are like fiercely, um, like deliberately focused on honoring each child and bringing out the best in them, and wanting them to be brave and wanting them to find their voice and wanting to learn from them as they come up through the program, and get creative and bold and build community among themselves. And that has changed this community, the children's theater company, because then schools come and then parents come and then they get used to being in a space that maybe, like going back to what Kaylee was saying, maybe somebody would feel, I'm not going in a gallery and then up in a theater, and that has shifted. And I believe it's because of the children's programming first and foremost.
I agree with you 110%. The first thing I did when I moved to Delta 18 years ago was start a children's theater company. And then we ran filmmaking camps and we did dance classes and we started using spaces that weren't being used anymore and bringing in families. And I know Joanne's on this call, so she's going to love that we're focusing on TYA right now. But honestly, I think that it's about training that child and that family, right? And then, as the, new families come into the community, there's already something existing. Having an arts ecosystem in your community, in your rural community, draws in new folks as well. And we know that it brings in doctors and it brings in professionals, and it expands our ability to service and provide the arts for more folks. Yeah, TYA.
I love that. I know that there's research that shows that if children are introduced to arts experiences before the age of 11, they're much more likely to build a habit of going later on as adults. And so it makes complete sense to me that you're pointing to your children's theater companies as really sources for creating a supportive community for the arts. I love that. I will go to one of the thornier topics, but I know someone always asks this question when I run a slow touring workshop, and it's about money. Um, I hear time and time again that slow touring is really difficult because it takes more time, it takes more resources. Resources can be harder to come by when you have a smaller space with fewer tickets to sell and fewer people to sell them to. So I would love to know, maybe I'll go to Claire first. What's your perspective on resources and slow touring?
Well, I think like when we chatted last week, I said this, money has never been the priority. No, like that might be unusual. I'm not sure, but like for me, it's never been like a primary consideration. It's never has been a consideration. And that might be a luxury to be able to say that. But the primary, like I wake up in the morning and my first thought is, what can we do? How can, how can we, serve our community creatively and bring, amplify marginalized and minoritized voices in our on our stage, and how like those are the things that get me really excited. And then when that is the motivation and the priority is to bring really great art, or we had an access arts program that we ended up getting funding for, but it was like the barrier to local children like experiencing theater in Norfolk County is distance, like, and busing. So they can't just like walk down the street and they're at the ROM. It's really hard to bring children here. And also I'm maybe going all over the place, but the thing of having an artist like perform on the stage in the gym where they just play basketball is good. That's okay. But the passion that I wake up with in the morning is like, these kids, let's get them here. Let's have them walk into that gallery and then be able to have an opinion around the art that's on the walls, and then walk up the stairs and walk into the theater and be a patron and sit down and laugh and clap and yeah, that's part of the motivation and the conspiracy of joy. And that when that is what propels, I'm not going to say you or me, that propels me. And then it's contagious. And then the community gets excited and they're like, well, what else could we do? We could have silks. We've had acrobats, tumbling from the beams upstairs and on the Black Bridge. And we've had really amazing things happen. And then we're like, well, how can we make that happen? How are we going to afford it? And then you look into funding models, or have a really, like, we have shows of where they make a lot of money, and I know that they're going to, because they're popular artists. And then we take that and put it toward having like Okavango African Orchestra, or, some of the bands that we've put on the stage. The money is, and I know everyone can get mad at me, and but I'm honestly, I'm telling the truth. Like, I've never, it's never been a primary consideration. It's the thing that needs to happen in order to keep the passion going.
That's great. I'm going to share a story if that's okay, and then talk a little bit about funding structure. So, first, I went to this amazing show, this rural show, where this actor said that he came up with the concept because he used to look at his words, his gorgeous wife every morning, who was a flamenco dancer, and she had nowhere to dance flamenco in this rural community. And how did he showcase her beautiful art form to people who weren't used to it? And so they went and talked to a local farmer, and they got a barn. And then another woodworker provided the wood, the exact right wood she would need for us to hear as she was dancing, right? And then another farmer donated just for the season the hay that we all sat on. And a third farmer then donated the tarps that covered the hay at night because that hay was required to feed horses later. Someone else made snacks. And so I got to see this beautiful performance of this actor singing traditional sort of Western songs in a flamenco style so that his wife could dance, and then horses danced with them, and everything was donated, right? Like everything came from the community. And it was sort of like one of, if there's a will, there's a way. And that just sort of harkens back to relationships. And I really wanted to share that story because that show, I saw it in 2023 and I still think of it all the time. Um, but
You should
also
write
like
a book. It sounded like a book. And then the farmer did the thing, and then the hay that we sat on.
right? It's or around a song in the round. But I think too, okay, we have champions for things like slow touring and rural arts in funding agencies, and there's definitely a big one on this call today. Um, but their hands are tied. Our funding officers are working in structures that are rapidly becoming outdated, and they're doing the best they can. We have these amazing advocates for the arts, but there's only so much that they can do with what they are given. And so, yes, there will never be enough money and there will always be money. It's like Pandora's box of finance, right? Um, and there will be times where it feels like, gosh, I can't. Thanks, David. Like, I
Mhm.
can't afford this. I can't afford to do this show or put on this season. Or, like I'm going to find out about the grant for Delta Pride 1 week before Delta Pride. I'm still
Mhm.
booking those artists. I'm like saving money in my little back pocket just in case, right? Um, it's just the way things happen. And if unless we keep continuing to advocate as a sector for sectoral change, it
Mhm.
will not happen. And there are some amazing agencies and organizations and ASOs out there that are doing this work. And I highly recommend that everybody find out about them because we need change from the top. We've got people here fighting for it and we're fighting for it. So we've just got to get to that top rung.
Yeah, I think that you've both touched on something that I think of as the scarcity mindset. And so, I think sure people might perceive Claire as having a place of privilege to say, I don't really think about money. It's not where I begin. But I actually think that's not frivolous. That's really the core of it is not always coming from this really protectionist, small c conservative place of scarcity and we can't do very much and we just have to do a little bit. I really appreciate you coming from the point of view of this is what I want to do and I'm going to figure out how to make it work.
Well, we're not accountants. Like, we're
Right.
not, we're in the performing arts. When you're involved in the arts and when you're performing, or artists are you know, um, performing. I wanted to find a different word. It's they're their raw material. It's not like, oh, look what I made. I put a part in a car. Um, you know, you are the vessel, and the message is so meaningful to you, and it's the output of your soul and your essence, and that's like, I never sit in the audience upstairs and take for granted anyone that's up on that stage, vulnerable and I bold, and like all of the ways one can express themselves. Uh, it is, to me, it is a kind of spiritual, and it is the abundance mindset and accessing the riches that we have, um, which aren't like the dominant economy, to borrow an Evelyn Perry quote. The dominant economy, we talk about the economy, um, mm, do you mean like dollars and cents? What is the task you perform for money? um, but there are so many other economies and ecosystems within which to exist and thrive, and uh, we're we're really rich with joy and love, and um, in the arts we have that beauty that maybe, I hope there's no accountants in, the average office person goes and sits, and I'm like, I'm surrounded by music, and I'm surrounded by um, theater and creative creative thinkers, and anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you both. Um, I I want to go from here into how do we maintain that passion, but also have, a work-life balance. But let's first take our 5-minute bio break and then return. So at 2:53, if everyone's okay with that, take a breath, take a drink of water, and look at something that's not a screen, and we will return in 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, hi. I'm calling everyone back from our little break. We don't have Claire yet. Yes, we do. Perfect timing. Um, Fabulous. Okay, thanks for that little interlude. I want to build on what you both were talking about earlier. I think we would all agree that you two are very special people who are very dedicated to your work and bring a lot of passion and energy and in some ways have made it your whole life. But um and you've talked about how relationships and knowing the people around you in your community have been essential to the slow touring type of work. So I want to ask about the flip side of that. Is burnout a concern with the amount of personal effort that has to go into it? And how can we work relationally and with passion, but also in a sustainable way without expecting everyone to sacrifice their work-life balance?
Yeah, I'm just going to say yes. Succession planning is huge. And relationship building. I mean, you think, how can I plan for the future and someone else if this is my relationship? And how does that work? And I'm just going to go back to youth again. Another great way, and one thing that I really, really appreciate about slow touring is it allows rural youth to understand that they can have a career in the arts rurally. And which means we're able to maintain our youth and we're able to have that continuity, and then they grow and they become Claire, right? And they take over for Claire. Um, and it's a way for us to maintain a couple things. One, when we keep our youth in our community, we're keeping tradition alive, but we're also keeping older brains spry. We're bringing new ideas into the community and more forward thinking for the time period. I'm not saying that old folks aren't, like, I'm old. I was forward thinking in my time period, right? But youth are more forward thinking, and so it brings that, which helps with succession planning, and then those relationships are built in. But if you're like me and you move to this community as an adult, it can be a little difficult at first to build those relationships, but when you do, you really still have to plan for the future. You still have to make the fact that this is the Hall's relationship. So yes, it might be Claire's best friend down the road, or Claire was telling us about a gentleman who lends cars for them to transport artists. That is Claire's relationship, and she did the work building that, but also ensuring that that is the Hall's relationship. It supersedes the person. It's about leaving any sort of ego behind and coming in from a very humble space and realizing that what you are creating or building or helping to continue is bigger than you, and it is about the community. Claire?
And we did talk about that a few days ago. And I just, anytime I walk into a space, like a room or like a meeting, and we all know that, like, when ego starts rising up, um, in any, it's like, especially obviously in the creative world, it just takes up so much space and obscures. And there's a book that I read years and years ago called Sweat Your Prayers. I think it was written by a dancer. And she talked about how we all move through life. Some are very staccato, but some are very lyrical. And she talked about that output of just expressing spirituality and just sort of moving in the universe with your body. And again, that's when I can't imagine not being in the arts, because all of it comes together. But there's a quote, Gabrielle Roth, ego drowns out the song of the soul. And when it creeps into creative spaces or sacred spaces, or it's like we're not sitting around a boardroom table at the bank, when it creeps into this space. I'm very protective of that. Uh, it it's got to go, and even if it's me, because I've felt it before, you know, and in myself, and I have to root that out. And then the other thing that we talked about is um, modeling that and we get away from that so often, especially when dealing with children and the community. You you can do the land acknowledgement, and you can, say everything right, and you can make sure that everything is um, a certain way, and demand things, and flex whatever. But what it all comes down to is being being and particularly with kids and in this community, um, you got to model that, and you got to model humility, and you got to model your passion and excitement and celebration. And like a little kid that came into through dress up in drama years ago, he wanted to wear the sparkly dress and be Ariel. And another little boy was said to him, Seth, you can't do that. And I said, why? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, done. Just kindness and uh, openness and grace and bravery. I don't know how we got there. From
But I was going to say though, Claire, when you lead with that, it does make succession planning easier, and
yes,
when you lead with humility and you understand, like, hey, this, like, okay, SPARC, I'm in my 6th year. Like, how many years is it appropriate that I should be ED of this organization before a fresh voice needs to be heard, right? We need to remind ourselves of these things. Like, we can't just be in this position forever. Like, yeah, I love my job. I love what I do. I love the people I work with. But the honesty is, for the betterment of the organization, at some point, I need to step away,
but
right?
you're like the universe will take the dancing and the all of that. It's all it'll flow.
Yeah.
No, you're never leaving.
If you model it, it will flow. I really do think that is, but succession planning, I live in a village where the same 3 ladies are on every committee. And it's not because they want to be, it's
Mhm.
because they know that if they leave that committee, they'll only leave the other 2 ladies on the committee, right? Like, and so, um, engagement, getting people engaged at a younger age so that they grow up and they know that they can be here and that they can have this career, I think is
And
important.
I burnt out. Like I burnt out about 18 months ago. Um, I like really like started to feel the weight of this organization on me. Um, and I could carry it when I was younger, and I had all that energy, and other things happen in life, and uh, I began to feel like really like overwhelmed, and that was new for me. And and so I had to really take stock, and and like for me it was really eye-opening because I carry so much in my head.
Yeah.
So I'll do the thing. We're doing a thing. Well, I'll text the radio station, and I'll send someone to do an interview, and I'll call these 3 people, and they're going to do the bar, and they're going to do this, and then I know how to where the thing is, and that, and where, and I'm just doing it, and I'm hauling ass. That's what we do in small towns. It's another thing. Um, and I realized, like, I took a bit of a leave. No one knew what to do because I just did it. So that I had to come out of my head, and I needed more support. And my board learned that they needed to step up as well because there wasn't a structure in place to care for me and for this precious magical building. So yes, that's a danger, Kaylee.
So
I
were you able to put things in place, or start the process of
Yes.
What does that look like?
Um, well, it looks like getting an assistant and and people who make spreadsheets and do math and organize things, bringing them in. And um, I am being a bit facetious, but honestly, it was kind of scary, and we're still kind of going through that where um, I have so much in my head, and like really, we at the beginning of like my career here, we just did it. We just did the thing. Like we didn't even have a model, and we just started, and then we started doing concerts, and then we started, you know, putting them into a series, and then like that grew, but it all was here. And then I would call the agent, and I would deal with this, and I would do, you know, or the sign up forms, and the tickets. I printed all the tickets. We used to have paper tickets and then take them to different, like no one knew all of the things that were going on, and that's on me. That's on me. So it's all getting put on paper, and we have kids that have grown up through the theater company in this community who are going to inherit this space for sure.
I think that's where the tenets of slow touring actually can really help the local rural presenter as well. Like taking that time and slowing down and really sort of having that time to breathe. Because I know we don't necessarily present as frequently as urban presenters, but because of the way we gather resources and because of the way we gather funding, it does feel like we may be not okay. Some of us in this room right now present as much as urban centers, but some of us don't. And so I think that it's just as stressful, but in a very different way. And then sometimes, you know, in certain parts of rural Canada, the presenters are volunteers. They have a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 8 that they're working as well. And then they also have to or love to present. And so yeah, there is burnout. And I think that's another reason why I love slow touring because it prioritizes balance and not just on the part of the artist. I think it makes the presenters and the locals go, oh yeah, at the same time.
I'm just gonna walk into space because I'm talking about it and I'm in the space, so I might as well
Oh,
walk through.
yeah. Sure. Share a little bit of the space with us. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, thank you both for sharing about that. I think that's a really important topic because it is easy for me, especially me, because so touring is what I really care about. This project is super important to me, but I just get to do the thinking and the dreaming and um I don't have to run a venue. I don't have to be an artist that goes out on tour. And there's some practicalities um around around burnout, around creating systems so that not everything relies, oh, beautiful, Claire, so that not everything relies on just a single person and their passion and their relationships. I think that is really going to be key to sustainability in this work.
Yeah.
And you said, Kaylee, you said that um, I, I I really liked it. It's not a metaphor. It's
Slowing down is not a metaphor. I do like to remind people of that. Thank you. Because I think sometimes it's easy to say that slow touring is a phrase that kind of represents doing things in a more empathetic way, in a more sustainable way, but and in a way that's more inclusive and equitable. But I think sometimes we just think that's a metaphor, and the reality is it does take more time. You actually have to slow down, and it's really tricky, but we all have to find a way to do that, to slow down and be more intentional with everything that we do.
yeah.
So we've got 23 minutes left, and I really want to make sure there's time for questions or comments from the audience. I can see that many of you are rural yourselves, or you're artists that have toured rurally, or agents that have worked with rural presenters and supporting artists touring there. So I would really welcome if there's any questions that you have for Rachel and Claire, or Also comments. Again, we're kind of a pool of peer knowledge here. Um, so please feel free to put questions and comments in the chat or raise your hand with the Zoom raise hand feature and I'll call on you to speak aloud. But we've already got a question in the chat, so I will go to David's question, which maybe to begin with, I'll direct it to Claire. What do you look for in an artist when you're considering planning a slow touring presentation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I I think that first of all, the word curate, the etymology, like the family tree of that word, has the same root as, well, it's to care. So it's caring deeply about my community, the quality of um, the show, the art, the performance. Um, what do I look for? I have. I think I'm a good curator. I think I have a modicum of taste in music. Uh, I look for. This is such a good question because there's this aspect of like wanting to like push boundaries a bit and not bring like an Elvis tribute show. You know, those aren't things that we do here. They're great, but I want folks to leave um, after they've seen a play and talk about it. I want um, voices amplified on my stage if I have that privilege. I don't want someone telling a story that everyone's going to chuckle at and be like, yeah, that's what it's like on the farm. I want a story, or I aim to choose pieces that are different, that are like Nassim Suleimanpour, that play White Rabbit, Red Rabbit. We had that here. We have had like Hannah Moscovich and Daniel McIver plays, and we had like interesting stories, captivating stories, but not stories that are like, why? Why would you want to tell this story that everyone's going to agree with? And then with music, I've really focused on like we had two world music series, and my goal was like, not one white man is going to sing on my stage. And oh, can I tell the? Yes. Okay. So my dear friend Jax has a little boy, and he's black. And we had Okavango African Orchestra here. I think it's somewhere up on the wall, and our world music series. And for those things, talking about money, I wanted to do that very badly, but then I know that it's not going to sell out because no one's heard of these bands. So that's where funding comes in. That's where funding comes in. It's very, very helpful to have these streams of funding that will support that. So Okavango African Orchestra is playing on the stage, and this little boy who doesn't sit still is standing in front of the stage, watching these exuberant, talented, gorgeous men, black men, singing. And this little boy is like watching that, like he didn't move. And that's representation. And that's why you got to care. You got to curate. You got to care about your community.
I think adding off of that, Claire, like when I'm talking to community members or members of SPARC that are doing slow touring and are embracing the idea, they're also looking for artists who, and again, I'm going to go back to ego a little bit. The artists who don't say, no, I just do the main stage. Like, it's like, yeah, I do the main stage, but maybe the next day I go into the seniors' home to those folks that can't come to the main stage. And maybe in the afternoon, I go to the public school or the high school to the kids that maybe, again, need to see themselves represented on stage or hear their culture's music. And so I think that a lot of folks in rural areas embracing slow touring and picking artists that want to be there, that want to engage with their community on a deeper level. I'm not saying artists who can only tour and come in for one night don't care about where they are, but I've also heard someone say, I've been to Paris 7 times, but I've never once seen the Eiffel Tower because I never leave the tour bus. Like I go into the venue and I leave. And so, slow touring is a chance for those artists to see where they are and experience it. And we're choosing artists who want to experience what we have to offer.
Well, it's like slow food.
Yeah.
It's like these um this realization, this collective epiphany that we're having, that it's so much better to savor, connect, take time, um, like derive meaning or intent, like intention is so important as well. And intending to have a meaningful experience, intending to create the space or and in a way that when the audience comes in, they're going to be um, embraced by it and have that meaningful experience. And you can go to McDonald's, that's fine. You can go through the drive-through. Um, but there's a there's sometimes a better way, you know? Slowing down allows us to um, create meaningful moments.
Yeah, I think that's important. Not every artist wants to spend more time where they're traveling, or they just don't have the capacity right now. Many people have young families and they just need to get home to them, or for whatever reason. So touring's not always the perfect fit in every situation, and that's okay. But yeah, I really appreciate that idea of like looking for those artists who are interested in staying longer. And even Veronica said this off the top, wherever she goes, she's looking for additional opportunities to play for women that are in jails. And
Yeah.
like Rachel said, seniors homes, or there's so many different ways that an artist can stay longer. And I will go to this question in the chat about money, but on that note, sometimes that's a way to generate more money for the artist as well, is to have them play in different places and offer workshops. And it can be a win-win in terms of value for the audience and for the artist. But I will go to Julia's question, which is, we've mentioned that it's not about the money, but can we talk more about how to resource slow tours? And 5 people have reacted to that question. So I know that this is on everyone's mind. Do you have anything that you can share about how you resource these projects that, I mean, Claire, you just talked about Okavango African Orchestra being risk programming, needs funding support because it's not going to sell out. Yeah. What would you like to share on this topic?
Um, so that is a really good question. There are resources like David. I remember when I went to the first SPARC symposium, which was my first, but SPARC's second. And I was like, what is going on? Like, look at these people. They're doing things that I do. And I suddenly, was in a community interacting with people who ran a small town theater or, a volunteer, up north and running an old hall, that sort of thing. And David came up to me. I don't know if you remember this, David, but he's like, what are you doing? You're having these artists in your small town. How are you doing it? Like, do you have funding? And I'm like, no, we just sell the tickets and I call up this business and they sponsor it. And I mean, that's sort of, it's charity. If we break even, we're good. But we weren't at that time. I didn't realize there were so many resources out there, and so David um, was maybe is still with CAPF, the Canada Arts Presentation Fund, and they've been so good to us. And we have money this year to put towards the artists that are playing on our stage. So that is an excellent resource. I say just go for the banks, like just go for the jugular. They have so much money. Find so I know I'm not I don't go through typical channels, but I with TD, the Access Arts Program, I I started applying online and it just got lost. And so I'm like, who's the person like that I need to meet to talk to? And I met him and I found him. And I'm like, you're giving my children's theater company money and you're going to help me bus in all of these kids. And your bank is going to look really good because we're going to call it TD Access Arts. So you have to be resourceful. And I think one of the things that happens, and I've seen it with actors who get discouraged because they're not getting an audition. I see it with theater companies and just like they put out the program and the brochure and it just, well, we can't get this grant. Well, we didn't get this grant. Well, what? I feel like you got to get back to your roots and why you're doing it and be resourceful and be creative. And I've seldom gotten like traditional money exactly the way it was supposed to. That sounds really illegal. I've seldom gone through this channel and that happens perfectly. It's always, again, through relationships and caring. And there's a magic in the arts. And that's why I'm in that, I'm in this economy of connection and beauty and I know that sounds really, Rachel, say something binary.
Well, I was going to say, and I want to, first off, I wasn't sure if David wanted to speak to this as he has his hand up, or if he has a question. You want to speak to this? Yeah, I was going to say, okay, so you know what? I'll let David speak to this because I want to loop into Lindsay's comment because I feel this question deeply. So over to David.
Hi,
Hi,
David.
everyone. Thanks for this conversation. It's great. And you know, what struck me is that when SPARC started, the idea came out of Halliburton Highlands, which at the time was considered, I think there was a study that had been done, and it was the lowest per capita income of any county in Ontario. So how is it that something like SPARC could start in a place where there was supposedly a lack? And the reality is that there was no lack. It's the scarcity mentality that I think we often have to deal with, and we face it regularly in our surroundings. I think one of the cool things that I've learned from, you know, working with rural presenters is that there's no lack. It's the opposite. There's this spirit of generosity that is so prevalent. It's so evident in each community that I've had a chance to visit and to see what goes on. So it's really just a question of how do we do it? Because there is no lack. It's more the question of how do we organize it? And what also I think is unique about rural is that how it's done in Waterford is different than how it's done in Dryden. It has to be because makeup of the community, what the community is based on, who the people are going to be different. That's where the diversity lies. So, you know, I appreciate the comments because I've seen a lot of different models tried, you know, and before the term slow touring existed, we were working through the Canada Arts Presentation Fund with organizations that were really deeply committed to having an artist come to a community and have a great experience. And for that artist to then impart, you know, what they had to offer and do it in a variety of ways. And I think, you know, that is the principle that still exists. It still applies. So each one of you need to kind of figure out, okay, where do I fit into this? You know, so for an artist, It's making sure that you can communicate really clearly what you have to offer. So what is there within what you do that would really work in a senior's home? What is there that would be great in an elementary school? And the more articulate you can be about that, then you can build a partnership with the presenter. I do appreciate that the Ontario Arts Council developed a new fund, which they introduced, it is literally a fund to support presenters working with artists to do a project in their community. So have a look at that. That might be something that you would be interested in pursuing, either as a presenter or as an artist. One of the striking things for me, having worked at the Canada Arts Presentation Fund for all these years, is that I haven't seen a lot of development in applications that is talking about wanting to try slow touring. I feel like
Huh.
that's still a threshold that we haven't crossed.
Hmm.
So for those of you on this call, consider that, in your relationship with your advisors and have that conversation because I do feel like, maybe you don't go 100% into it, but start it. Try one. You know,
Hmm.
give it a go and see what it's like. Learn from that experience because there's definitely benefits for everyone involved.
Hmm.
Get off my soapbox and pass it
No,
back.
no, you're just like David is like the most important, like pivotal person in my career in the performing arts. Just meeting David just changed my trajectory and the way I thought, and it was so inspiring to hear someone go, "You're doing a really great job," and I'm like, "I'm just a hamster in a small town," kind of like like it really changed things, and it I derived so much confidence and boldness from the wonder. Like you had this genuine like wonder. You came to this space, and I'm like, okay, like you see it, and yeah, it's been really inspiring. I keep that flame.
Yeah, thank you, David, for jumping in there and also reminding us that funders are advocates for us and very supportive of this work. And so just connecting with, whichever funder that you're interested in connecting with is a good move. And to Claire's point, it sounds like having David make a connection with you and help you see where you stand in the kind of constellation of different arts organizations is really helpful too. And that just reminds me that relationships and collaboration with other organizations is huge for resources. So everyone probably already knows this, but I feel compelled to remind us that. I mean, Claire, when you're bringing in, I think you said a 16-piece band from Barcelona,
Yep.
you're not doing it by yourself. You've collaborated with Alfredo at Sunfest in
Mhm.
London. You've collaborated with Lula Lounge in
Mhm.
Toronto. You're making it happen through those partnerships,
Mhm.
not having it all on you to try and make something big like that happen. But we only have a few minutes left. So let me go to Lindsay's wonderful question in the chat. I will read it aloud just in case anyone hasn't seen it. In 2026, is it possible presenters and venues in rural places expand their paying staff and create opportunities for increased infrastructure? How do we reconcile the need for to depend on philanthropy and volunteerism and encouraging a philanthropic spirit in incoming generations of arts workers without disadvantaging marginalized people or giving them precarious access to the industry? This is such a huge
Mhm.
question. How do we pay artists fairly? How do we make sure folks that are coming up with from marginalized backgrounds that may not have access to resources that let them just do the arts for fun?
Mm.
Yeah, how do we create roles for them, Rachel?
But it's
Right.
all, yeah, it's also about paying staff, right? Like, I'm going to share something here. I'm going to be very vulnerable for a minute. When I started my theater school, there were winters we did not have heat because kids couldn't afford to pay and I was paying for everything. And I am a disabled woman. I live rurally, like I can't get to things easily, right? And so that is a huge issue. And this happens so frequently in rural areas where you're volunteering and you're giving and it's like, I'll just pay for that. Like I'll pay for the drag king. Don't worry. We need
Yeah.
this has to continue. We're going to do it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate this question because how do we do this? SPARC, currently we have two staff. I am on 20 hours a week and our Northern Outreach Coordinator's on five. Like, how do we do this? We've got new programming happening. Our board are all volunteers. And so Claire and I have a meeting coming up for our new program. Like, how do we continue this? And I want to know this answer as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this is a clear answer. Like, we don't have sort of the vast supplies of funding that some European countries have, right? Where the focus really is on the arts. And we're seeing that shifting away. And I feel like there's precarity with what's happening in the world. And, I'm just going to say it, the fascism that's right next door is greatly impacting our economy, right? And how we move forward and what shifts need to go from the arts to XYZ, military, whatever, like who knows, right? And I don't sorry to take us to that not joyous place, but I think this is something that we all have to consistently work on. And yes, we have amazing advocates like David and like Maura and like other people in the arts that are saying like, hey, in funding this, saying, hey, like we need this has to happen. But how do we do this? And I think collaboration is a big one. There was like five companies in Toronto recently that, or in the last year, that all now share one HR person. Um, and so that's how they sort of started doing that. So like collaboration of staff as well is another way forward. Um, Saving money on extraneous things. Like I live in a community where people are going to the post office to pick up their mail, and that's where they're looking at posters for what's coming up. Like, I don't need radio ads here, but I do need radio ads in Sudbury. So, like, really sort of looking at where can we do these things that save money that do then go back to paying artists or to paying staff. So yeah, I'm sorry, Lindsay, I don't have an answer to that, but I'm so thankful that you brought it up because we do talk a lot, and we really should talk a lot about making sure artists get paid what they deserve. But I think also the folks, presenters and staff also need that same consideration. And I'm hoping that slow touring is something that allows us the time to figure that out, how to rejig our budgets, how to do this, how to do that, so that we can move away from philanthropy, especially I've heard maybe six times over the last year, people talking about moving from granting to repayable loans. I mean, I don't quite understand that. And so it like kind of frightens me. But at the same point in time, is it more sustainable? I don't know. The conversation is ongoing. And Chandel's put in UBI. Yes, UBI is an answer to this for sure. Over to you, Claire.
We're almost
No, I've said enough.
basically at time, but Claire, I
Right.
do want to give you a chance if you want to quickly jump in on this.
No, I was just thinking, I didn't intend to get like so woo-woo, but it is such a precious thing that we're doing. And but at the same time, like I don't ever want to lose track of that. But at the same time, what Rachel was saying, and I like firsthand, I know because Rachel's on, she's the executive director of SPARC, and I'm on the board, and like I I would like steal to pay her more. Like she's so valuable, and she's constrained in ways that are the dominant economy has it does bear on it. But that's the age old, yeah, that's the age old question, just like Rachel said. But we got to be resourceful, and we got to care about each other, and we got to collaborate, and we have to share um, best practices and resources and all of that. But it'll that's why they had benefactors back in the day, or someone would you know here, I will pay you and you will paint. People that care about the arts will crop up and invest and help. We have to find them.
Yeah. And I really like your suggestion, Rachel, of thinking about outside the box collaborations. Can multiple arts organizations share a bookkeeper or, a marketing person or a grant writer? Um, we are going to have to get creative because it is a challenge and it's kind of getting worse right now in terms of government of Ontario and somewhat the government of Canada moving towards austerity. So yeah, where to validate you if you're kind of panicking, it's true. It's really hard. And we don't want to make it sound like it's like, just call all your friends in the community, you'll solve
Mhm.
it. You've got all the resources you need. But I do think there is something to that into collaboration and relationships. And I really like Lindsay's suggestion that we should be creating those well-paying, supported jobs. And making that a bit of a priority, or at least seeing ourselves as on the same team, the artist, the presenter, the staff at the presenting organization, the agent. We are all in the same team trying to make this work. So rather than it being like, how can I get this artist for the cheapest price possible?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, I
how
get
can I
that.
make my organization work by overworking my interns? You know, trying to extract from people. Let's just say we're all in the same team and how can we make it work from that perspective? Social prescribing. Oh, yeah, so many good resources in the chat. Okay, I want to respect everyone's time, so I will cut us off there. Thank you so much, Rachel and Claire and Veronica, for speaking today. Really appreciate your perspective. Thanks everyone for joining. I know a lot of you are in rural communities or toward rural communities, so if you haven't reached out to SPARC or checked out their resources, Rachel put a couple things in the chat, and the symposium is coming up in the spring. So it's I spoke a lot about relationships and collaboration, and it's nice to be able to kind of put heads together with other people that are in similar scenarios. Um, the last thing I'll say is the next workshop in this slow touring sessions series is on sustainability, that is ecological sustainability in touring. And we're going to kind of get into brass tacks of how that's working in the face of climate change. So that's on March 30th. Really hope to see you there. Um, Other than that, slow down in all the ways you can, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for being
Thanks,
here, everyone.
Kaylee.
Thanks
Bye,
for
everyone.
having me. Bye.
Bye.